My mother and sister decided my refusal to fund their extravagant lifestyle was negative energy, so they held a family vote and banned me from Christmas. I didn't fight back. I simply canceled the utility accounts I'd secretly paid for 10 years. Then, the blizzard of the century arrived. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The exhaustion I felt that Tuesday wasn't just physical. It was a deep, marrow-level weariness that seemed to seep into my bones and turn them to lead. I was sitting in my home office, the glow of 3 monitors illuminating the darkened room, staring at a complex schematic for a regional power grid update. My eyes burned. I had been working 70-hour weeks for 3 months straight, managing a high-stakes infrastructure project that demanded absolute perfection. My head was pounding, a rhythmic thudding behind my eyes that synchronized with the cursor blinking on my screen. I was fighting off the early stages of a migraine, the kind that usually laid me out for 2 days if I didn't catch it in time. I reached for my water glass, my hand trembling slightly. I needed rest. I needed peace. I needed to know that the upcoming Christmas break, the one time of year I allowed myself to disconnect, was going to be a sanctuary. My phone buzzed against the mahogany desk, the vibration rattling a loose pen. I ignored it. It buzzed again, and again, a sustained, demanding vibration that I knew all too well. I glanced over. It was my brother Leo. "Pick up now." My stomach tightened. Leo never demanded anything. He was the easygoing one, the one who rolled with the punches, the one who had spent our childhood trying to make invisible waves so our mother wouldn't capsize the boat. If Leo was demanding I pick up, the boat had already capsized. I swiped the green icon and brought the phone to my ear. "Leo, everything okay?" "They had a meeting, Ava," Leo said. His voice was tight, low, like he was whispering from a corner of a room he didn't want to be in. "Without us." "Who?" I rubbed my temple, closing my eyes. "What are you talking about?" "Mom and Rosie, they had a family council. I just got off the phone with Mom. She's calling you next. I wanted to warn you before she hits you with the script." "Script, Leo, I have a migraine coming on. I can't do riddles. What happened?" "They voted, Ava." He let out a harsh, disbelief-filled laugh. "They actually voted. You're out. You're not coming to the farmhouse for Christmas." I froze. The cursor on my screen continued to blink, mocking me. What? "Banned," Leo clarified, the word landing like a slap. "Mom says your vibe has been off lately. She says you're too focused on money, too critical of Rosie's journey, and that you're bringing heavy energy into the family dynamic. They took a vote. Mom and Rosie voted yes. I wasn't even there to vote no, obviously. So you're out." I sat in silence for a long moment, the hum of my computer fans sounding incredibly loud in the quiet room. "Too focused on money?" I whispered. "I paid for Rosie's car repair last month because she forgot to pay her insurance and wrecked it. I paid for Mom's dental surgery in July." "I know," Leo said, his voice dripping with frustration. "I told her that. I said, Ava literally keeps this family afloat. You know what she said? She said, money is energy, Leo, and her energy is tainted with obligation. We want a pure Christmas." "It's insanity, Ava, total insanity." "So I'm uninvited," I said, the words tasting like ash. "Just like that." "Just like that. Look, I'm not going either." I told her, best gift ever, and hung up. "I'm not sitting there watching Rosie open gifts bought with your money while you sit alone in the city." "No," I said, my voice hardening. "Don't disconnect yet. I want to hear it from her." "Ava, don't." "I have to go, Leo. She's calling right now." I saw the incoming call screen override Leo's contact. Molly, my mother. A photo I had taken of her years ago in her garden popped up. She looked serene, smiling, the picture of a loving matriarch. It felt like false advertising. I switched calls. "Hello, Mother." "Ava, sweetie," Molly's voice purred through the speaker, smooth and light, as if she were calling to ask for a recipe. "I'm so glad I caught you. Do you have a moment? We need to have a little heart-to-heart. I'm listening, I said, leaning back in my chair. Well, Rosie and I have been doing a lot of reflecting lately. We've been manifesting the kind of holiday season we want, one filled with light, joy, and abundance. And well, she paused, a dramatic, rehearsed sigh filtering through the line. We feel that recently you've been in a very dark place. You're always talking about budgets or deadlines or responsibility. It's very draining for us, Ava. It blocks our flow. Blocks your flow, I repeated flatly. Exactly. So we had a little family meeting this morning. We took a vote. And we decided that for the sake of everyone's mental health, it would be best if you sat Christmas out this year. Maybe use the time to do some meditation or a silence retreat just to reset your energy. The sheer audacity of it left me breathless. It wasn't just the rejection, it was the rewriting of reality. They weren't just uninviting me, they were framing it as a spiritual necessity, casting me as the villain in their pursuit of happiness. You voted me out, I said, because I'm too negative. It's not a punishment, darling, she chirped. Think of it as a gift, a time for you to find yourself again. We just can't have that heavy, judgmental cloud hanging over the farmhouse. We want a magical Christmas. And frankly, you're just too much reality right now. I looked around my office. I looked at the degree on the wall. I looked at the calendar marked with payment reminders for their bills. Okay, I said softly. Oh good, I knew you'd understand, Molly said, relieved. I told Rosie, Ava is logical, she'll see the wisdom in this. So, we'll see you in the new year, once you're feeling lighter. Sure, Mom, I said, in the new year. I hung up the phone, I didn't scream, I didn't throw it across the room. I just sat there, the silence of the house wrapping around me. But inside, something snapped. It wasn't a snap of rage, it was the sound of a tether finally breaking. The tether that had bound me to my role as the protector, the provider, the fixer. They wanted a magical Christmas without reality. They wanted to be free of my heavy responsibility. The betrayal was worse than the diagnosis itself, I whispered to the empty room, thinking of the stress-induced hypertension my doctor had warned me about just last week, stress caused almost entirely by them. They wanted to live in a fantasy world. Fine. I was about to show them exactly what the real world felt like. For the next hour, I didn't move from my chair. I sat in a strange state of paralysis, replaying the conversation over and over in my mind. Blocks our flow, tainted with obligation, too much reality. It was the specific phrasing that cut the deepest. Too much reality. My mother, Molly, had lived her entire life insulating herself from reality. My father, God rest his soul, had worked himself into an early grave to keep her in the lifestyle she felt she deserved. The sprawling farmhouse 2 hours north of the city, the garden parties, the endless redecorating. When he passed away 10 years ago, the reality should have crashed down on her. The pension wasn't enough to maintain the drafty, charming, but incredibly inefficient 19th century farmhouse. The upkeep was astronomical. But the crash never came, because I stepped in. I stood up, my legs feeling stiff, and walked to the window of my apartment. The city below was gray, the sky a bruised purple. The weather forecast had been playing on the news in the background earlier. A historic polar vortex was sweeping down from the Arctic. They were calling it a once-in-a-generation freeze. My phone buzzed again, a text from Rosie. Hey, Mom told me you took the news really well. So proud of you for respecting our boundaries. 3 also, since you aren't coming, could you maybe Venmo me the money you would have spent on my gift? I really have my eye on this crystal singing bowl set. It would be perfect for the holiday ceremony we're planning. Let me know. I stared at the screen, the emojis, the exclamation points, the absolute, unadulterated entitlement. She didn't just want me gone, she wanted the resources I provided to remain detached from the negative person who provided them. She wanted the milk without the cow. I felt a cold smile touch my lips. It was a sensation I hadn't felt in a long time, malicious compliance. Leo, I said, answering his call back immediately. Did she do it? Leo asked. Did she actually say it? She did. She said I was blocking their flow. She suggested a silence retreat. I'm going to drive up there, Leo growled. I'm going to shake some sense into them. No, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. You aren't going to do anything. You told them you weren't coming, right? Yeah, I told them best gift ever, and that I was spending Christmas with my negative sister. Good, keep it that way. Don't go up there, Leo. Whatever happens in the next few days, do not go to the farmhouse. Why, Ava, you sound weird. What are you going to do? I'm just going to give them exactly what they asked for, I said, walking back to my desk. I sat down and woke up my monitors. They want a Christmas without my influence, without my heavy energy. They voted for it. I'm just going to respect the vote. I opened a new browser tab. My fingers flew across He keys, logging into a secure portal. It wasn't a social media site or a bank account. It was the master dashboard for a company called Rural Grid Solutions. Ava, Leo asked, sounding worried now, what is that clicking? Leo, do you remember the winter of 2018, when the lines went down during the ice storm? Yeah, Dad was freaking out. The pipes almost burst. Right. And do you remember what I did after Dad died to make sure Mom never had to worry about that again? You installed that massive generator system, the propane one, the size of a Honda Civic. Correct, I said, watching the dashboard load. Green status lights flickered on the screen. System online. Fuel level 98%. Battery backup 100%. Remote access active. I designed it. I installed it. I pay the monthly service fee for the satellite link that keeps it connected to the grid for monitoring. And I pay the fuel delivery service to keep the 500-gallon tank full. Okay, Leo said slowly. They voted me out, Leo. They voted out the person who manages the infrastructure. Ava, Leo whispered, the realization dawning on him. It's supposed to be -20 this weekend. I know, I said, my eyes scanning the diagnostic panel. And the farmhouse has single-pane windows and zero insulation in the north wall. The furnace runs on oil, but the blower fan needs electricity. The thermostat needs electricity. The well pump needs electricity. You're not. They wanted to see how they like it without my power, I said, hovering my mouse over the Administrative Controls tab. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. I don't just pay the bills, I control the switch. To understand why I was about to do this, you have to understand the decade of silent servitude that preceded this moment. It wasn't just about money. It was about the slow, methodical erosion of my self-worth to prop up theirs. When Dad died, he left a mess. He loved Mom desperately, so he shielded her from the math. He mortgaged everything to keep her happy. When the dust settled, the farmhouse was underwater, the credit cards were maxed, and the life insurance was a pittance. I was 24, just starting my career as an electrical engineer. I had student loans. I had dreams of traveling. Instead, I refinanced their house in my name because Mom's credit score was non-existent. I took over the utility bills because Mom didn't understand those complicated charts. I paid for the oil deliveries. I paid for the plowing service. And then there was the generator. The farmhouse was located at the end of a 3-mile dirt road in a valley that acted like a wind tunnel. The power went out if a squirrel sneezed on the line. After one bad storm where Mom called me sobbing, claiming she was freezing to death, it was 60 degrees in the house. I spent $20,000 of my savings, money meant for a down payment on my own home, to install a commercial-grade Generac system with a dedicated satellite uplink. I designed the redundancy protocols myself. I set it up so that if the grid failed, the system would kick in within 10 seconds. She would never even have to reset a clock. I handled the maintenance schedules remotely. I paid the propane company directly. I made her life seamless. And what did I get in return? I got Molly. Molly was a woman who believed she was the protagonist of a Victorian romance novel. She didn't work, she curated her home. She didn't gossip, she shared concerns. She was beautiful, polished, and utterly helpless by choice. She believed that harsh words caused cancer but ignored the fact that smoking was bad for her. "Ava, you're frowning again," she would say when I visited, looking at the spreadsheet of her expenses. "It makes you look so old. Why can't you be more like Rosie? She radiates light." And then there was Rosie, my sister, 3 years younger and the eternal project. Rosie was a life coach who had never successfully managed her own life. She was a crystal healer who constantly needed money for antibiotics. She was currently living in the guest wing of the farmhouse, rent-free, finding her center after her third failed engagement. The antagonist of my life wasn't a monster with claws. It was a woman in cashmere who sighed when I talked about heating oil prices. I looked at the text from Rosie again, "Venmo me." They didn't see me as a person. They saw me as a utility. I was no different to them than the water coming out of the tap or the heat coming out of the vents. I was expected to be there, silent and functional, flowing on demand. And when I made noise, when I asked for gratitude or fiscal sanity or just basic respect, I was a noisy pipe. I was a nuisance. And now, the nuisance had been removed. I looked at the user management screen on the generator's dashboard. There were 2 authorized users, admin Ava and user home. I thought about the last Christmas. I had spent 6 hours cooking the entire dinner because Mom couldn't handle the heat of the oven and Rosie was fasting for clarity. I had bought all the gifts. I had dragged the tree in. And at the end of the night, Mom had raised a glass and toasted to Rosie for bringing such beautiful decorations and making this house a home. I hadn't said a word. I had just washed the dishes. "Not this year," I whispered. The phone rang again. It was a local number, the propane delivery service. "Hi, is this Ava?" a gruff voice asked. "Calling about the account for 442 Pine Ridge. We're scheduled for a top-off tomorrow before the storm hits. Just wanted to confirm payment method, card ending in 4092. "Actually," I said, my voice steady, "cancel the delivery." There was a pause. "Cancel? Miss, there's a blizzard coming. The tank is at 60%, but if they run that generator for 3 days straight, they'll chew through that. You usually want it topped to 100. "I know the specs," I said. "I'm the engineer who installed it. Cancel the delivery." "Okay, but if they run out during the storm, we can't get a truck up that road until the plows come through. That could be days." "I understand the risks," I said. "Also, I need to remove my credit card from the file. Immediately. If any future deliveries are ordered, they need to be paid for by the resident, Brenda Molly waiting." "Sorry, just Molly, Molly Davis." "Does she have a card on file?" "No," I said, "she doesn't." "Well, we can't deliver without prepayment. Company policy for that zone." "I understand. Please remove my card and cancel the order." "Done," he said, sounding confused. "Stay warm, ma'am." "You too." I hung up, step 1 complete, the fuel supply was capped. I turned back to the screen, now for the kill switch. My finger hovered over the mouse. I wasn't going to shut it off now. That would be petty. They had grid power currently. The house was warm. They were probably sipping cocoa, talking about how peaceful the house felt without my negative energy. No, I would wait. I would wait for nature to take its course. The storm was predicted to hit in 48 hours. The heavy snow would weigh down the old pine trees lining the county road. The lines would snap. They always did. And when the lights went out, the generator would attempt to start. I clicked into the system logic settings. I found the command line for automatic transfer switch, ATS, auto start enable. It was set to ON. I clicked the drop-down menu. I selected off. A warning box popped up. Critical warning. Disabling auto start will prevent the backup system from engaging during a grid failure. Manual override will be required at the physical panel. Are you sure? Manual override, I murmured. The physical panel was located in the machine shed, 50 yards from the main house, through 4 feet of snow, and even if they got there, they needed a key to open the cabinet. A key that was currently sitting in the junk drawer in the kitchen, buried under 10 years of takeout menus if they hadn't lost it. And even if they found the key, they needed the passcode to unlock the digital interface. A passcode only I knew. I clicked yes. The status light on the screen changed from green to amber. System state, standby manual only. I leaned back in my chair, the migraine beginning to recede, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. "Merry Christmas, Mom," I said to the screen. "I hope the vibes keep you warm." The next 48 hours were a strange exercise in suspended animation. I went to work. I sat in meetings. I approved schematics for a substation in the next county over. I functioned like the machine they always expected me to be, but beneath the surface, I was vibrating with a chaotic mix of anxiety and adrenaline. Wednesday passed with ominous warnings from the National Weather Service. The polar vortex was no longer a probability, it was a certainty. They were predicting wind chills of 30 below zero and snowfall measuring in feet, not inches. I sat in my warm, climate-controlled apartment on Thursday night, a glass of wine in hand, watching the local news. The weatherman was using words like life-threatening and historic. My phone remained silent. No check-in from Mom to see if I was safe. No text from Rosie to ask if I had groceries. They were likely too busy manifesting warmth and preparing for their pure Christmas to worry about the daughter they had exiled. I decided to do a little due diligence. If I was cutting the cord, I needed to make sure I had severed every strand. I opened my laptop and pulled up the joint bank account, the House Emergency Fund. This was an account I had set up years ago, strictly for catastrophic failures at the farmhouse. I deposited $500 into it every month automatically. Mom had a debit card for it, but the rule was simple: use only for blood or fire. I logged in, expecting to see a balance of around $6,000. The balance read $42.50. I blinked, leaning closer to the screen. That was impossible. I clicked on the transaction history, my heart hammering against my ribs. Deck 12, Luminous Spirit Retreats, deposit, $2,500. Deck 14, Tesla Rental Luxury, $800. Deck 15, Whole Foods Market Catering, $1,200. Deck 18, Sephora, $450. Deck 20, The Crystal Cave, $600. I felt the blood drain from my face. It wasn't just the money, it was the timing. They had drained the emergency fund before they held the vote to ban me. They had secured the funding for their lavish, high-vibe Christmas party using my emergency money, and then cut me out of the picture so I wouldn't be there to ask questions about why the champagne was vintage and the decorations were new. They hadn't just uninvited me, they had robbed me. I pulled out my phone and took screenshots of every single transaction. My hand was shaking, not with sadness this time, but with a cold, hard rage. "Leo," I texted. "Yeah," came the instant reply. I just checked the emergency account. Rosie spent $6,000 in the last week. Crystals, a retreat deposit, luxury car rental. 3 dots danced on the screen for a long time. Then, Holy S. Ava, that was for the roof repairs in the spring. "I know," I typed back. "They stole it, Leo. They stole the money and then kicked me out so I wouldn't notice until the statement came next month. What are you going to do?" I looked at the swirling radar map on the TV screen. The storm front was a massive purple bruise moving rapidly toward the farmhouse. "I'm going to wait," I replied. "The storm hits in 6 hours." I closed the laptop. Any lingering guilt I had about the generator evaporated. I wasn't teaching them a lesson anymore, I was engaging in self-defense. They had taken my money to buy their fantasy. Now, they were going to have to live in it. I slept fitfully that night, waking up every hour to check the dashboard on my phone. 02:00 a.m., grid status, stable. 04:00 a.m., grid status, fluctuating. Wind speed, 45 mph. 05:30 a.m., grid status, unstable. Voltage drops detected. I got up and made coffee. I sat in the dark, the blue light of the iPad illuminating my face. It was Friday morning. Christmas Eve was tomorrow. At 6:15 a.m., the notification pushed to my screen. Critical alert, MAINS power lost, grid disconnected. I held my breath. In a normal scenario, the next notification, arriving 10 seconds later, would be generator active, transfer switch engaged. I watched the seconds tick by, 10, 20, 30. The screen refreshed. System status, standby, mains off, generator off, warning, battery backup draining. The farmhouse was dead, the lights were out, the furnace had stopped. I took a sip of my coffee. It was hot, rich, and comforting. "Let the manifesting begin," I whispered. The call didn't come immediately. They probably thought it was a momentary flicker, or perhaps they were scrambling to find flashlights. I imagined the scene. Rosie screaming because her hair straightener turned off, Molly sighing dramatically and lighting the beeswax candles she had bought with my stolen money. It took 45 minutes. When my phone finally rang, the caller ID said home. I let it ring 3 times. I took a slow breath, composing my features, smoothing out the anger until I was nothing but cool, professional detachment. "Hello," I answered, keeping my voice light. "Ava," it was Molly. Her voice was an octave higher than usual, laced with a frantic energy that cracked her serene facade. "Thank God you picked up. The power is out." "Oh," I said, "that's unfortunate. The storm looks pretty bad on the news." "No, Ava, you don't understand," she snapped, the sweet mom act dropping instantly. "The power is out, totally out, and the generator didn't turn on." "Really?" I asked, feigning mild surprise. "That's odd." "It's not just odd, it's freezing," she yelled. "The wind is howling and the house is already getting drafty. Why didn't it turn on? You said this system was foolproof. You spent all that money on it." "I spent my money on it, yes," I corrected her gently. "But machines are tricky things, Mom. Sometimes they need maintenance." "Well, fix it," she demanded. "Log into your little computer thing and turn it on. Rosie is freaking out. We have guests coming at noon for the solstice brunch. The oven won't work." "Mom," I said, my voice dropping to a conversational, almost bored tone, "I can't just fix it. I'm not the administrator anymore." There was a stunned silence on the line. "What do you mean?" "Well," I said, leaning back in my chair and watching the snow swirl outside my window. "You voted, remember? You said my energy was too heavy. You said I was too focused on technical things and money." I took that to heart. I decided to step back from all my negative responsibilities, including managing the farmhouse infrastructure. "Ava, stop playing games," she hissed. "This isn't funny. Turn the power back on, now." "I didn't turn it off, Mom. The storm did. I just didn't ensure it would turn back on, because that would have been controlling. I'm trying to respect your boundaries." "You did this on purpose," Rosie's voice shrieked from the background. I heard the phone fumble, and then Rosie was on the line. "You psycho, you hack the house because you're jealous." "Hello, Rosie," I said. "I see you're still working on that inner peace." "Shut up," Rosie screamed. "It's freezing in here. I can see my breath in the hallway. Fix it right now, or I'm telling everyone what a vindictive bee you are." "Telling everyone?" I laughed, a short, dry sound. "Rosie, who are you going to tell? Your phone is at 20% battery and the Wi-Fi is down. The cell towers in the valley usually fail about 2 hours after the grid goes. You're about to be very, very cut off." "You can't do this," Rosie whimpered, her bravado slipping as the reality hit her. "We have the brunch." "I don't think you're having the brunch, Rosie. I think you're having a survival situation." "Just turn it on." Molly was back on the phone, sounding close to tears. "Please, Ava, we're cold." "I can't turn it on remotely," I lied smoothly. "Whatever glitch happened, it requires a manual reset. Someone has to go out to the shed." "The shed?" Molly gasped. "It's snowing sideways. The drifts are already 3 feet deep." "Well, then you have a choice," I said. You can bundle up, trudge out to the shed, and flip the switch, or you can stay inside and wait for the power company. But looking at the outage map, I wouldn't expect them until Tuesday. Tuesday, Molly shrieked. We'll freeze to death. You have a fireplace, I pointed out, and plenty of blankets, and I'm sure all that light and abundance you've been manifesting will keep you warm. After all, you said my reality was too much for you. This is reality, Mom. Nature doesn't care about your vibe, it just is. Ava, please, Molly sobbed. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry we uninvited you, just help us. You're sorry, I asked. Are you sorry because you hurt me, or are you sorry because the heat is off? She stammered. And what about the $6,000, Mom? Silence, absolute frozen silence. I saw the bank activity, I said, my voice turning to steel. You drained the emergency fund, the money meant for this exact situation. You spent it on crystals and catering. You stole from me, banned me, and now you want me to save you. We were going to pay it back, Rosie yelled from the background. With what job, Rosie? I snapped. You haven't worked in 3 years. Ava, Molly started. No, I said. I'm done. Figure it out. Walk to the shed if you want power. Use the manual override. Oh, wait. You need the key for the cabinet. Do you even know where it is? The key, Molly sounded panicked. I think it's in the drawer. Good luck finding it in the dark, I said. And if you do find it and you do make it to the shed, call me back. Maybe I'll give you the code, maybe. I hung up the phone. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. I looked at the dashboard. Internal temp, 62 degrees F. Trend, falling. It was dropping fast. The old farmhouse leaked heat like a sieve. They had maybe 4 hours before it hit 50 degrees. The silence after the call was heavier than before. I knew what was happening on the other end. Panic. Chaos. The frantic search through junk drawers by the light of dying cell phones. The accusations hurled back and forth, Molly blaming Rosie for the crystals, Rosie blaming Molly for the vote. I spent the next hour documenting everything. I downloaded the generator logs. I downloaded the bank statements. I saved the text messages. If they tried to spin this as elder abuse or endangerment, I needed proof that I had provided them with every tool for survival, and they had squandered it through negligence and theft. My brother called at noon. They called me, Leo said. He sounded shaken. Ava, Mom is hysterical. She says you're trying to kill them. I'm not trying to kill them, Leo. I'm trying to get them to acknowledge reality. Are they okay? They're cold. Mom says it's 58 degrees inside. They're huddled in the living room with the fireplace going, but the wood supply is low because Rosie forgot to order the cordwood in October. Of course she did, I sighed. Leo, listen to me. They can turn the power on, they just have to go to the shed. They tried, Leo said. Rosie tried to go out. She got about 10 feet and turned back. She's wearing Ugg boots and yoga pants, Ava. She doesn't own actual winter gear. That's a choice, I said. There are spare Carhartt coveralls in the mudroom closet. Dad's old ones. There are sorrel boots in the attic. They have the gear, they just don't want to look ugly wearing it. She said they can't find the key. It's in the blue tin in the B. Autumn drawer under the dried-out superglue, I said automatically. I knew that house better than they did. I'll tell them, Leo said, but Ava, what happens if they get to the shed? You said there's a code. There is, and I'm not giving it to them until they admit what they did, publicly. What do you mean? I mean I want them to tell the family group chat, Aunt Linda, Cousin Mike, everyone, that they stole the emergency money and banned me. I want the truth on the record. No more Ava is negative. I want we are thieves and we are sorry. They'll never do it, Leo said. Mom would rather freeze than look bad in front of Aunt Linda. Then she better start doing jumping jacks to stay warm, I said. 2 hours later, the internal temperature sensor read 52 degrees F. My phone rang again. It wasn't Mom, it was Rosie. We found the key, Rosie said. Her teeth were chattering, actually chattering. I'm putting on Dad's old coat. I'm going out there. Good for you, Rosie, I said, building character. Give me the code, she demanded, though the bite was gone from her voice, replaced by shivering desperation. Not yet, I said. First, tell me about the $6,000. I needed it, she cried. I needed to clear my chakras. I was in a crisis. A crisis is a blizzard with no heat, Rosie. Buying rocks is not a crisis. Admit you stole it. I borrowed it. Stole? You took it without asking from an account earmarked for safety. Say it. Fine, I took it. I took the money. Are you happy? Now give me the code. Not yet. Step 2, the fuel. What fuel? The propane tank, I said. It's at 60%. I canceled the fill-up yesterday. You what? I canceled it. It was on my credit card. Since I wasn't coming, I removed my card. You have enough fuel to run the generator for about 2 days if you're careful. If you try to heat the whole house to 75 degrees like you usually do, you'll run out in 24 hours. And the trucks aren't coming until the roads are cleared. You're a monster, Rosie sobbed. I'm an accountant right now, Rosie. I'm doing the math for you. If you get that generator started, you need to turn off the breakers for the guest wing. You need to turn off the breakers for the electric water heater. You need to huddle in the kitchen and living room and conserve fuel. Can you do that? I don't know how to do that. Then you better learn fast. Because if you run out of propane, there is no code in the world that can save you. Give me the code, she screamed. Go to the shed first, I said. Call me when you're standing in front of the panel. And Rosie, if you scream at me one more time, I'm hanging up and turning my phone off for the night. There was a long pause. All I heard was her breathing and the wind howling in the background. Okay, she whispered. I'm going. I watched the dashboard. 10 minutes passed, 15. Then my phone rang. I'm here, Rosie said. She sounded exhausted. It's freezing out here. The snow is up to my waist. I'm at the box. I unlocked it. Okay, I said. Do you see the keypad? Yes, it's glowing blue. Okay, here is the condition, Rosie. I'm going to text the family group chat right now. I'm going to write. Mom and Rosie would like to let everyone know that the emergency fund was spent on Rosie's retreat, which is why the house wasn't prepared for the storm. They are also sorry for banning me from Christmas. Ava, don't, she pleaded. Aunt Linda will eat us alive. I'm sending it, I said. As soon as I see a thumbs up from both you and Mom in the chat, I give you the code. If you don't interact with it, well, I hope you brought a sleeping bag to the shed. Mom is inside. She can't see the chat. She has her iPad. It has cellular data. I pay for that too, remember. I type the message out. I attach the screenshot of the bank transaction. I hit send. Ding. The notification popped up on my screen. I waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes. Then a notification. Molly liked a message, then another. Rosie liked a message. And then a text from Aunt Linda. OMG Brenda, is this true? You spent the roof money on a retreat. I smiled. The social shield was shattered. The perfect family image was gone. Okay, Rosie, I said into the phone. Ready for the code. Just give it to me, she wept. The code is 1225. 1225, she repeated. That's it. Yes, 1225, Christmas Day, easy to remember. I heard the beeps. I heard the mechanical thunk of the solenoid engaging. And then, through the phone, I heard the roar of the engine firing up. On my screen, the status light turned green. System status, active, generator running, voltage normal. It's on, Rosie said, her voice breaking. The lights are on in the shed. Congratulations, I said. Now remember what I said. Turn off the guest wing. Conserve the fuel. Because once that tank is empty, I can't help you. I hate you. Rosie whispered. I know, I said, but at least you're warm enough to say it. Merry Christmas, Rosie. I hung up. I looked at the group chat. Aunt Linda was on a rampage, tagging my cousins, demanding explanations from Mom. The facade of the negative Ava was crumbling, replaced by the reality of the irresponsible Molly. I walked to my kitchen and poured another glass of wine. I was alone for Christmas. I was tired, but for the first time in 10 years, I didn't feel heavy. I felt incredibly, blissfully light. The silence of the snow-covered valley was deceptive. As my SUV crunched over the hard-packed ice of the long driveway, the world looked pristine, almost like a Christmas card. The ancient pines were heavy with white powder, and the farmhouse sat stoically at the end of the lane, smoke drifting lazily from the chimney. But I knew better. I knew that inside those walls, the atmosphere was toxic. It was December 28th. The roads had finally been cleared by the county plows that morning. The historic storm had passed, leaving behind 4 feet of snow and a family that had imploded. I wasn't alone. Behind me in a sensible sedan followed Aunt Linda and my cousin Mike. After the group chat explosion, the screenshots of the bank theft, the admission of guilt I had extorted from Rosie, Aunt Linda had declared that a family summit was mandatory. She was the executor of my late grandfather's small trust, and technically, she held the only leverage over Mom that I didn't: social standing. I parked next to Rosie's rental Tesla, which looked ridiculous buried up to its door handles in a snowdrift. I stepped out, the frigid air hitting my face. I took a deep breath. This was it, the final walk. When I opened the front door, the smell hit me first. It wasn't the usual scent of lavender and expensive candles. It smelled of stale wood smoke, unwashed bodies, and damp wool. The temperature inside was hovering around 60 degrees, habitable but uncomfortable for people used to 72. Molly and Rosie were sitting at the kitchen table, wrapped in layers of blankets. When I walked in, they didn't look relieved. They looked like cornered animals. "You," Molly spat, standing up. Her hair, usually perfectly coiffed, was flat and greasy. She looked 10 years older than she had a week ago. "You have the nerve to show your face here." "Hello, Mother," I said, stamping the snow off my boots. "I see you survived." "Survived?" Rosie shrieked, her voice raspy. "We almost froze. The generator ran out of fuel at 4:00 a.m. We've been sitting here shivering for 6 hours. "I told you," I said calmly, unzipping my coat. "I told you that you had 48 hours of fuel if you were careful. If you ran out, it means you didn't turn off the guest wing. Or maybe you took hot showers." Rosie looked away, flushing guilty. I needed to wash my hair. I felt gross. "So you chose hygiene over heat," I said. "That was a choice, a reality-based choice." The door opened behind me, and Aunt Linda marched in, followed by Mike. Linda was a force of nature, a retired school principal who tolerated zero nonsense. She took one look at the huddled, miserable figures of her sister and niece, and then looked at me. "Brenda," Aunt Linda said, using Mom's real name, which made Mom flinch. "Sit down." "Linda, you have to help us," Molly wailed, rushing toward her. "Ava has gone insane. She's abusive, she cut our power, she humiliated us on Facebook." "She didn't cut your power," Linda said, her voice like a whip crack. "The storm did. Ava just stopped paying for your life." Linda slammed her purse onto the table. "I saw the bank statements Ava posted. $6,000, Brenda. You spent the emergency fund on crystals and a retreat while your roof is leaking." "It was an investment in our mental health," Molly argued, though she shrank back into her chair. "We needed to clear the negative energy. Ava brings so much darkness into this house, we had to counteract it." "Negative energy?" I stepped forward, pulling a thick binder from my bag. I had spent the last 2 days compiling it. "Let's talk about energy, Mom. Let's talk about the energy I've poured into this black hole of a house for 10 years. I opened the binder. Since Dad died, I have paid $142,000 in utility bills, taxes, and repairs. I have paid for Rosie's car insurance 3 times. I have paid for your dental work, your manifestation seminars, and your organic grocery delivery." I slid the binder across the table. It hit the wood with a heavy thud. "That is negative energy," I said. That is the energy of a daughter draining her own future to keep you in a fantasy world where you don't have to work. I didn't know it was that much, Molly whispered, not looking at the binder. You knew, I said. You just didn't care. As long as the lights stayed on, you didn't care who was burning to keep them that way. But that's done. The vote you took, the on. Banning me from Christmas. I looked at Rosie, who was picking at a loose thread on her blanket. I accept the results of the election, I said. I am officially resigning from this family. You can't do that, Rosie said, her voice trembling. Who's going to pay for the refill? The truck is coming tomorrow. You are, I said. Or Mom is. Or maybe you can return the singing bowls and the Tesla. The Tesla is stuck, Rosie cried. Then I guess you're walking, I said cold-heartedly. Ava, please, Molly said, switching tactics instantly. Her eyes welled with tears, her lip quivering in that practiced way that had worked on my father 1,000 times. We're family. I'm your mother. I gave you life. You can't just leave us here to freeze. We learned our lesson. Truly, we appreciate you. It was a powerful performance. For a second, the old instinct kicked in the urge to fix it, to soothe her, to make the problem go away so she would smile at me. But then I looked at the fireplace. I saw the empty log grate. They hadn't even bothered to bring in more wood from the porch. They had just sat there, cold and entitled, waiting for someone else to save them. You don't appreciate me, I said softly. You appreciate my utility, and I am out of service. I turned to Aunt Linda. I'm removing the generator next week. It's my property, paid for with my money, listed in my name. I'm selling it to recover some of the stolen funds. You can't take the generator, Molly screamed, standing up again, the mask falling away. That's part of the house. Actually, it's a portable commercial unit on a temporary pad, I corrected her. I checked the deed. It's a chattel asset. It's mine. You have 7 days to find an alternative power source or get on the grid's priority list, which, given your credit score, will require a substantial deposit. I hate you, Rosie shouted. I hate you, you're ruining everything. No, Rosie, I said, feeling a strange sense of peace washing over me. I'm just turning on the lights, real lights, not the ones I pay for. I turned to go. Aunt Linda didn't stop me. She just nodded, a grim expression of respect on her face. I'll handle things here, Ava, Linda said. Go home, you've done enough. As I walked out the door, I heard Molly start sobbing. Not the pretty, victimized cries she used for effect, but the terrified, ugly sobs of a woman who realizes the safety net is gone. I didn't look back. I got in my car, cranked the heat up to high, and drove away. The fallout was swift and brutal, exactly as reality tends to be when it finally catches up. With Aunt Linda supervising the finances, the house of cards collapsed within a month. Without my monthly infusions of cash, the farmhouse was unsustainable. The heating bill alone for January was $900, money Molly simply didn't have. Aunt Linda forced the sale. It wasn't a tragedy, it was a mercy. The farmhouse was sold to a young couple from the city who had the energy and the capital to restore it properly. Molly was moved into a sensible 2-bedroom condo in town. It was warm, efficient, and had 0 drafty hallways. She hated it. She complained to anyone who would listen that it was soulless and cramped, but she was warm and she was solvent. Rosie's awakening was even ruder. Without the free rent and the allowance I had indirectly provided, she had to face the world. The Tesla was repossessed. The crystals were sold on eBay. Last I heard from Leo, she had taken a job as a receptionist at a dental office. She was miserable, posting vague, passive-aggressive quotes about toxic family on Instagram every day, but she was paying her own phone bill. As for the legal side, I didn't sue them. The sale of the generator covered the $6,000 they had stolen, plus a little extra for my trouble. I considered it a severance package. Leo and I met for a late Christmas dinner in mid-February. We went to a steakhouse in the city, a place with dark wood and low lighting, warm, quiet, and expensive. How are they? I asked, cutting into my filet. Leo chuckled, shaking his head. Mom is trying to start a condo association coup because they won't let her hang wind chimes on the balcony. Rosie is dating a guy who owns a landscaping business. She thinks she's grounding herself. At least she's working, I said. Yeah, Aunt Linda checks in on them. She keeps them on a tight leash. But Ava, Leo put his fork down and looked at me seriously. You look different. Different how? You don't look tired, he said. For the first time in my life, you don't look like you're carrying the weight of the world. I took a sip of wine, thinking about the last few months. My weekends were my own. My bank account was growing. I had started painting again, a hobby I had given up years ago because supplies were too expensive when I had to pay for Mom's oil delivery. I feel different, I admitted. I realized. Something, Leo. What's that? They were right, I was negative. Leo frowned. Don't say that. You were the only positive thing in that house. No, I smiled. I mean in the electrical sense. In a circuit, the negative pole is the ground. It's the anchor. It's the part that takes the load and directs it safely into the earth. Without the negative, the current has nowhere to go. It just arcs and burns. I swirled the wine in my glass. I was the ground. I absorbed all their excess voltage. I took all the shocks so they could sparkle, and when I disconnected, they didn't know how to handle the surge. Well, Leo raised his glass. Here's to disconnecting. Here's to being a closed circuit, I corrected him, clinking my glass against his, and to keeping my own power. The dinner was perfect. No drama, no guilt, no requests for money, just two siblings enjoying a meal they had earned. I drove home that night through the city lights, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. Not for the money I had saved, but for the lesson I had finally learned. You cannot keep people warm by setting yourself on fire. Eventually, you burn out, and they just complain about the smoke. I parked my car, walked into my warm, quiet apartment, and locked the door. I checked my phone. One missed call from Mom. No voicemail. I didn't call back. Instead, I walked over to my thermostat, turned it up 2 degrees just because I could, and went asleep.